evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephanie Cox. Here are today's top stories. Rescue and recovery efforts are underway on the Gulf Coast following Hurricane Ida's devastation. Crews are busy restoring power while the feds work with providers to help stranded residents get their cell service back. The last U.S. military plane left the Kabul airport earlier this afternoon, ending the evacuation. But tensions were high near the airport over the weekend. The U.S. military struck an ISIS-K vehicle filled with explosives, and ISIS fired rockets at the airport. Evacuees from Afghanistan began landing in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania over the weekend. NTD was on the ground when they arrived. We hear about the biggest challenge they face to resettle. U.S. Customs and Border Protection in Los Angeles seized nearly 40,000 phony Chinese designer products coming into the U.S. over the last month. The fake goods are valued at over $50 million. And tennis fans are excited to be back at the U.S. Open in New York City, even with the city's vaccine mandate. Hurricane Ida has sadly claimed at least one life, and it's devastated the power grid along the Gulf Coast. President Biden has deployed 5,000 National Guard troops for rescue and recovery efforts. And meanwhile, Ida has weakened into a tropical storm. NTD's Kevin Hogan has more updates.
Over 1 million people are without power along the Gulf Coast, and now many are waiting to be rescued from flooded homes in the aftermath of Hurricane Ida, which made landfall on Sunday. Residents with boats have arrived to help with rescue efforts in Laplace, Louisiana, and President Biden is asking people to shelter in place if they can safely. That's while states along the Gulf Coast are working with the Red Cross to open 50 shelters for displaced people. Biden details the aid on top of the National Guard presence.
And FEMA has pre-positioned literally millions of meals and liters of water. They're already pre-positioned as well as other resources in the immediate area. And we've deployed more than 200 generators, and we already moved into the region. They've been moved in ahead of time.
The Federal Aviation Administration is directed to work with Louisiana and Mississippi electric providers to use drones to assess the damage. What's more, local utilities are working to get power lines into New Orleans back up, and 25,000 debris crews across 30 states are pouring in to help the affected areas. Furthermore, AT&T confirmed significant outages to cell service in Baton Rouge and New Orleans, and now the FCC is working with providers to allow customers to use other carriers that are up and running if theirs are down. The Attorney General of Louisiana is pleading with residents of Lafourche and Terrebonne parishes not to return to their homes. And Todd Terrell, the founder of the United Cajun Navy, says the most severely affected areas are Houma and Laplace, Louisiana. Ida caused flooding, collapsed buildings, and also forced people onto their roofs.
They've clocked over 300 rescues today. Now, a lot of those are coming in from houses in Houma where there's 10 to 15 people in a house. Everybody kind of hunkered down. Some of the neighbors and family kind of went to a house because their house roofs come off, so they were kind of hunkered down. So it's a little different this time. Rather than rescuing 1 or 2 people, it's more like 8 to 10 to 12 people in a house.
Terrell says there's one big problem on their hands. That's the fact that when they rescue people to churches or parking lots, their phones are usually dead and without service. Therefore, they can't call relatives to bring them where they need to go. One resident in Laplace said he stayed in his attic to survive.
The water was just coming in so fast that it got to about knee level so quick. I didn't know if it was going to stay there or rise, so I just went up to the attic, and it didn't get too much higher than that, but it was scary. It came in all at once.
Louisiana Governor John Bell Edwards relayed some good news, though. Not a single one of the state's levees failed during the hurricane. Edwards said hurricane risk reduction systems performed magnificently and that Louisianans are going to get through this. Kevin Hogan, NTD News.
And experts are warning that gas prices will rise due to Hurricane Ida. That's because extreme weather interrupted oil production. According to AAA, the national average is currently $3.15. An executive with Gas Buddy, a fuel-saving app, says he expects gas prices to increase between 5 to 15 cents per gallon due to Hurricane Ida. The storm paused much of the gasoline refining and oil production along the Gulf Coast. Shell, Phillips 66, and Exxon temporarily closed refineries. About 96% of the oil production in the Gulf of Mexico was also brought to a halt. And another attack on the Kabul airport. ISIS fired 5 rockets at the airport, but fortunately no one was hurt. And U.S. forces launched airstrikes on an ISIS-K vehicle loaded with explosives. Here are the details.
The Pentagon confirmed Monday the U.S. troops in Kabul successfully intercepted one of the 5 rockets targeting the city's airport. They were launched at around 11 p.m. Eastern Time Sunday night or Monday morning local time.
We assessed that 5 rockets were in the air and went. 3 landed off the airfield, were no effect, and CRAM was able to effect and thwart the attack of one, and the other rocket landed with no effect to the mission or any danger to our personnel.
Some of the rockets hit a neighborhood in Kabul, but no casualties were reported. The Pentagon did not say who was behind the attack, but ISIS claimed responsibility.
We certainly assess, as the general said, that there's still an active threat in various ways that we have to be prepared for. The threat stream is still real, it's still active, and in many cases it's still specific.
And separately on Sunday, U.S. forces launched a successful airstrike against an ISIS-K vehicle loaded with explosives near the Kabul airport. It was before the rocket attacks. The vehicle had a secondary explosion that killed a number of civilians nearby.
Significant secondary explosions from the targeted vehicle indicated the presence of a substantial amount of explosive material. We are aware of reports of civilian casualties, and we take these reports very seriously, and we are continuing to assess the situation.
All of this happened while evacuation efforts were underway. On Sunday, U.S. aircraft evacuated around 1,200 people.
As of today, more than 122,000, including 5,400 Americans, have been evacuated from Afghanistan.
Around 600 Americans remain in Afghanistan. Secretary of State Antony Blinken estimated Sunday that around 300 of them still want to leave.
And the military withdrawal from Afghanistan is officially over this afternoon. Military officials say every U.S. service member is out of the country.
I'm here to announce the completion of our withdrawal from Afghanistan and the end of the military mission to evacuate American citizens, third country nationals, and vulnerable Afghans.
The last U.S. military C-17 plane left the Kabul airport around 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time this afternoon. But there are still around 600 American civilians in Afghanistan. General Frank McKenzie admits that they didn't get everyone out that they wanted to get out. He calls it a tough situation. But the State Department will continue to try and bring out the remaining Americans and vulnerable Afghans. And over the weekend, evacuees from Afghanistan began to land in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. NTD had reporters on the ground awaiting their 1 a.m. arrival. City officials vowed to ensure a safe haven for the hundreds of refugees. And we hear about the biggest challenge facing their resettlement. Here are the details.
The first of hundreds of Afghan evacuees began arriving in Philadelphia early Saturday morning. Philadelphia International Airport is the second airport in the country appointed by the White House to receive Afghan allies escaping danger posed by the Taliban.
We have a host of partners here, federal, state, and local, all with one mission, and that's to do our absolute best to provide a wonderful welcome.
Medical triage and COVID-19 testing and vaccination sites are set up for the refugees' arrival, along with food, water, and supplies, and something special for the children.
Big hit with the kids.
A prayer site was also set up in the airport. Hayes, Pennsylvania, a refugee resettlement and immigration legal services agency, is one of the organizations helping with resettling Afghan refugees. For the organization's office manager, Mohammed Sadiq Saeed, this resettlement is personal. His wife and 5 young children were in Afghanistan when the Taliban took over.
I was not even able to sleep for the entire week.
His family made it onto an evacuation plane bound for Germany just before the Thursday suicide bombing. Saeed doesn't know when he'll see his family, but he's determined to help other families in need once they arrive.
The first plane may arrive around 1 a.m. and for someone who hasn't slept for a week, it's so difficult But I never think that I'm tired. I never think that I cannot help them. I'm reassuring my friends that if I'm not there to take care of my family, at least another Afghan colleague will be there to take care of them because they cannot speak English. So this is the time that I have to help Afghan folks. This is the time that we need to help each other.
HIA's Executive Director, Catherine Miller-Wilson, says the biggest challenge is finding housing for the refugees.
Because of the crisis, we're getting only several hours notice of people arriving at the airport, so that's not enough time, obviously, to find housing. So the first challenge is to find temporary housing so that then we can find permanent housing. I will say that Airbnb has really stepped up. They've been tremendous. They've provided a whole number of free properties.
With the help of donors, Airbnb will house 20,000 Afghan refugees globally for free. Miller-Wilson says they're also asking the Philadelphia hotel industry to provide discounted hotel rooms. Apartment prices have skyrocketed due to the pandemic, so HIAS is meeting with landlords to discuss lowering rental costs for refugees.
I'm not sure how successful we'll be, so I'm very nervous about that and about how our families are going to do and whether they're going to be able to find jobs with income high enough to afford the housing.
Many of those touching down in Pennsylvania are also being taken to Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst in New Jersey. The Biden administration is aiming to evacuate 50 to 65,000 Afghan allies by the August 31st deadline for U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. Grace Coulter, NTD News.
A United States Marine officer who called out military leadership for perceived mistakes in Afghanistan in a video that has now gone viral has announced his resignation from the Marines. He was previously relieved of his command over the video, and he's still asking for accountability from military leadership. NTD's Jason Perry gives us the details.
Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Scheller says the U.S. military should have kept open Bagram Air Base and used it for evacuating everyone. But instead, they left the strategic air base and performed the evacuation operations at Hamid Karzai International Airport, where 13 troops were recently killed in a suicide bombing. Scheller had a personal relationship with one of the Marines killed in the attack.
Today, after 17 years, I'm currently not pending legal action. And I could stay in the Marine Corps for another 3 years, but I don't think that's the path I'm on. I'm resigning my commission as a United States Marine, effective now. I'm sure there's some MAR admin on how I'm supposed to do that, and I'll work through that. But I am forfeiting my retirement, all entitlements. I don't want a single dollar.
He says what you believe can only be defined by what you're willing to risk. Scheller believes if the senior leadership is held accountable, it would do wonders for those suffering from PTSD and for those still wondering if their buddies died for nothing.
The morning after I posted my video and I came into work, my boss came in and he asked me, "What were you trying to accomplish?" And that was a very tough question for me. And my response was, I want senior leaders to accept accountability. I think them accepting accountability would do more for service members in PTSD and struggling with purpose than any other transparent piece of paper or message.
Scheller says if the leadership would just say that mistakes were made, he would go back rank and file and complete his service in the Marines. He wants others to know what Marines go through and that they deserve more transparency from their leadership.
Those people who are there every day and don't get to leave the next morning or in the middle of the night, who go outside the wire, get blown up, bring their Marine back, and then go back out there the next day, they don't get the credit they deserve, and they deserve accountability.
Scheller said he has big plans for the future, but he did not specify what those plans are. Back to you, Steph.
People are losing their jobs for turning down the vaccine, but have you heard of a mother losing custody of her child for being unvaccinated? NTD's Miguel Moreno has the story of a parent who's experienced this firsthand. Fortunately, it did not last long.
A Chicago judge has reportedly reversed his ruling after being put under the media spotlight. Rebecca Furlet no longer has to vaccinate against COVID-19 to see her son. In what could have been the first case of its kind in the U.S., Furlet initially lost custody of him because she wasn't vaccinated. And Judge James Shapiro said the mother couldn't see her son until she was. Here's the mother's lawyer telling Fox 32 why she believes the judge overstepped his bounds.
The father did not even bring this issue before the court. So it's the judge on his own making this decision that you can't see your child until you're vaccinated.
Ferlet told the judge she hasn't been vaccinated because of bad reactions she's had to vaccines. According to the Chicago Sun-Times, the judge didn't say why he walked back his decision in the new order. He only said, "This court hereby vacates paragraph 3 of its order based on the absence of a pleading or hearing on serious endangerment." The mother told the Sun-Times she's extremely happy with the decision, but the father's attorney called the decision unfortunate, and they are working on an emergency order to fight it. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
A multi-state operation working to counter human trafficking has rescued 47 victims and arrested 102 people. That's according to Missouri Attorney General Eric Schmidt. In an announcement on August 27th, Schmidt said Operation United Front was an unprecedented human trafficking operation that brought together law enforcement agencies from different jurisdictions, something that rarely happens. When we all come together, we can effect change and more effectively fight human trafficking, a crime that is often multi-jurisdictional in nature. According to the information provided by the Missouri Attorney General's office, the operation spanned 12 states. And the trial for Theranos founder Elizabeth Holmes starts tomorrow. She's being accused of defrauding investors and patients. Newly released documents suggest she may accuse her ex-boyfriend of abusing her. NTD's Don Ma has the details.
Newly released documents suggest Elizabeth Holmes will accuse former boyfriend and Theranos former president Ramesh Bhawani of abusing her. This as her criminal fraud trial begins on Tuesday.
Well, it's a bold move from someone who's been willing to go big in the past, so it doesn't really surprise me.
Evan Neerman, founder of PR firm Red Banyan, says Holmes may be trying to portray herself as a sympathetic figure. He says this may sway the judge or the jury.
Holmes might be trying to tap into what's going on in the United States at this moment, which is the Me Too movement has reshaped public consciousness around women in the workplace. And I think she may be hoping that she can present herself, who victimized investors allegedly, as the victim.
According to court filings, Holmes says Bhawani controlled what she ate, what she should wear, how much she could spend, and even when she should sleep. Holmes accuses him of throwing hard, sharp objects at her, monitoring her movements, and insisting that any success she achieved was because of him. Bhawani, whose case is being handled separately, has denied the allegations. Holmes founded Theranos in 2003 at age 19. She claimed that her technology could provide a wide array of medical tests, only using a few drops of blood. The Wall Street Journal started questioning the technology in 2015, which led to civil and criminal federal probes. Theranos then went out of business and is being accused of lying to investors and patients. Don Ma, NTD News.
The Los Angeles Customs and Border Protection reports over $50 million of counterfeit Chinese goods over the past month. China remains the primary source of fake products and pirated goods seized, according to the CBP. NTD's Tiffany Meyer has more.
China is still trafficking large amounts of counterfeit products into the U.S. Over the past month, U.S. Customs and Border Protection in Los Angeles seized nearly 40,000 fake designer products from China. The products include handbags, shoes, wallets, belts, and other items. They bore imitation logos from Gucci, Dior, Chanel, and Louis Vuitton. The CBP says the merchandise would have had a combined retail price of over $50 million if it was genuine. CBP's port director at the Los Angeles International Airport says counterfeit goods unfairly compete with legitimate products and reduce the incentives to innovate, both in the United States and abroad. China remains the primary source of fake products and pirated goods seized. That's according to the CBP's 2020 statistics. Chinese-made counterfeit goods seized last year would have been worth nearly $660 million if they had been genuine. They accounted for 51% of the value of all seizures that year. Fake products from China also include counterfeit COVID-19 vaccination cards, fake FBI badges, and even fake U.S. currency.
The Chinese Communist regime is barring those under the age of 18 from playing video games more than 3 hours a week. Beijing says the move will stop video game addiction. The restrictions announced on Monday control the days and times when Chinese youth can play video games. It's a huge hit to the global gaming industry, which caters to tens of millions of young players in China. Chinese regulators say gaming companies will be barred from providing services to minors outside designated hours and must put name verification systems in place. This further tightens 2019 rules that restricted video game play. Gaming companies had reportedly sensed a crackdown was coming after Chinese state media criticized gaming addiction among young people. And coming up, tennis fans are excited to be back at the U.S. Open in New York City, even with the city's vaccine mandate. And a 19-year-old New Jersey native won 2 gold medals at the Games in Tokyo. See how her hometown is celebrating her victory. More in just a moment here on NTD News. Tennis is back in New York City, and even better, fans are back too. NTD's Arian Pazdar brings us fan reactions on opening day.
Day 1 of the crown jewel of American tennis started in warm and sunny weather in Queens, New York City on Monday.
I think it'll be fantastic to have fans back.
Last year, government-issued lockdowns forced the tournament to proceed without an in-person audience.
It's fantastic. We didn't stop playing tennis, but we don't play at this level. So we like to come and see if we can improve our game, but it feels great. Great to see people back, and it's just the energy of this place. It is a very happy place.
When we got our tickets, I just about cried just thinking about being back. But I feel outside, I feel safe.
She added that the mandatory proof of vaccination made her feel more safe. The tournament was initially set to go ahead without demanding proof of vaccination, a negative COVID test, or even masks. But just 3 days ago, the organizers announced that every fan attending the event has to be vaccinated.
I am so thrilled that you needed a vaccine card to get in, and we'll be wearing our masks when it's crowded. And yeah, I think it's what we should be doing.
However, not all of the professionals appreciate the vaccines as much as the fans do. The U.S. Tennis Association confirmed that the mandate does not apply to athletes competing in the tournament, some of whom don't want to receive the shot. Arian Pazdar, NTD News, New York.
Athletes who win a gold medal at the Olympic Games often become household names back in their hometowns. A New Jersey native won not 1, but 2 gold medals in Tokyo, and her city held an event in her honor.
She's a runner, she's a track star, and now she is a celebrity in her hometown. Athingmo is the first American woman since 1968 to win gold in the 800 meters race. She says it's a dream come true.
When people ask me what I want to do in the future, what my goals were, I said I want to be an Olympian, I want to be a professional athlete, and I'm here now.
She was born and raised in Trenton, the capital of New Jersey. City officials, fans, and friends all came out to celebrate her victory. She received a check of $10,000 and 2 keys to the city from the mayor. But it seemed like her brother was the only one to know what she really wanted.
Y'all know that she loves pugs, okay?
Oh, that is so sweet. Hey, John Harmon. She cried over a dog, you gave her $10,000.
Athing's parents immigrated from Sudan to the United States in 2000. She was born in Trenton 2 years later.
A startup is giving food that melts in your mouth a literal meaning. It's an innovative new product made for people who can't swallow properly, something that's more common than you may think. NTD's Evelyn Lee talks to the company's founder.
There's a startup that makes crispy snacks that literally melt in your mouth. It serves millions in America who can't swallow properly. Riva Bearwell is an oral reconstruction specialist. She started Savories with chef Jason Ball to help dysphagia patients.
There's about 25 million people in the U.S. today and about 590 million worldwide with dysphagia. And it's because it affects those big conditions that we all know of, like dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, ALS.
While most people don't think about what happens when they eat, Bearwell says it's a complex process that involves many muscles. And if there is something wrong with just one of them, swallowing could become a challenge. But for people with dysphagia, there are few food choices on the market, and many of those are just empty calories.
They're having liquid supplements, shake supplements, and that monotony of flavors is what I wanted to get away from. Being a dentist, I didn't want to supply someone who is dealing with disease and inflammation with more sugars.
Many struggle with dysphagia for a lifetime and are unable to get the nutrition they need. And the monotony of the meals makes patients not want to finish eating them, a situation that Bearwell wants to resolve. She says studies discovered that the solid crisps are actually easier to swallow than purees.
Having a solid food hit your mouth, hit your teeth, hit your tongue, initiates the neural stimulation and gets the person ready for their swallow versus a spoon coming into the mouth with no, chewing necessary.
Speech-language pathologists have also discovered that the crisps could assist patients with their recovery. It helps them move from purees to minced foods back to normal dishes. And because of high demand, Bearwell has started to focus on a transitional food line, and Savories is still innovating.
We are launching our first in the world dissolvable popcorn to bring also back that love of sitting, watching a movie, and not having pudding and being able to eat what other people are eating.
She says that the popcorn will launch in September and that the company is working on many new flavors as well. Evelyn Lee, NTD News.
Coming up, more evacuation orders are issued as firefighters battle West Coast fires near Lake Tahoe. The Caldor fire among dozens of large blazes in the U.S. And some universities in California are seeing more growth than their surrounding areas can handle. A judge ordered one school to freeze its enrollment capacity. Students at another school are facing a housing crisis. We'll have more when we return on NTD News.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Thanks to your support, you've helped make MyPillow become one of the fastest growing companies in America. Over the last 12 years, you've helped MyPillow create thousands of jobs right here in the USA.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
That's why I invented MyPillow. My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs and helps keep your neck supported and aligned. I'm interrupting this commercial right now. Retailers have canceled MyPillow, and to thank you for your support, I'm gonna pass the savings directly on to you. For example, you get my 6-piece towel sets, regular $109.99, now only $44.98, or MyPillow dog beds for as low as $19.99 with your promo code.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit MyPillow.com.
Navigating a world of economic madness, you need to have the right guide. What do today's decisions mean for your tomorrow? We ask why. What's the alternative? Uncover the deeper reasons and the hidden influences, and highlight the real opportunities for profit. At NTD Business, we connect the dots for you. Good evening. Thanks for joining us.
When you look at TV networks in America, a soundbite and fight-it-out culture prevails on news and commentary programs. As a Canadian, I'm fascinated with America, and I wanted to offer American thought leaders an opportunity to share their thoughts in a deep dive format, where we can explore their ideas together. And so American Thought Leaders was born. The world's most brilliant thinkers believed that open discourse was the key to greatness. However, all around the world, we see that discourse is being stifled, and political agendas have subverted media. the Epoch Times launched its Global Thought Leaders program to bring back this great tradition of free thought. As the host of American Thought Leaders, every week I interview some of the most intriguing minds on the most pressing issues of our time. Be sure to check out our new episodes every week.
California's Caldor fire has scorched over 270 square miles since it started on August 14th. It's now threatening the Lake Tahoe area where locals were given evacuation orders. NTD's Andy Elsmore reports.
Today we're here at Incline Village, Nevada, along the north shore of Lake Tahoe. And behind me you can see the normal pristine view of the lake is obscured by smoke from the Caldor fire, which is rapidly approaching South Lake Tahoe.
The Caldor fire, burning actively for 16 days, has forced evacuation warnings and orders over the weekend. Located in El Dorado County, it's burned over 177,000 acres and is only 14% contained, according to CAL FIRE. The fire has destroyed more than 600 structures, and at least 20,000 more are in danger.
Caldor is a real tough one for us. It's been burning in heavy timber in Deep Canyon Gorge of the Highway 50 corridor between South Lake Tahoe and Sacramento.
The Caldor fire destroyed multiple homes along Highway 50 in one of the main routes to South Lake Tahoe. The fire also destroyed several buildings at the Sierra at Tahoe ski resort. Those on the front lines used everything at their disposal to protect the buildings from the fires, including snow guns. CAL FIRE announced evacuation shelters at a nearby town of Truckee, as well as in Nevada. Meanwhile, California's Dixie Fire, the second largest in state's history, is nearly half contained. Reporting in Nevada, Andy Elsmore, NTD News.
Some California universities are allowing student attendance growth beyond capacity. After a recent court ruling, one of the universities will soon limit their student enrollment. Here's NTD's Eileen Ang with more.
A judge in Alameda County ordered University of California, Berkeley to freeze its enrollment, saying the school needs to study the physical impacts with more students admitted. The school has seen an increase of 33.7%, or over 11,000 students attending per year, from 2005 to 2020. The school will need to keep enrollment numbers at 2020 to 2021 levels until they have complied with the judge's ruling. This ruling comes after Save Berkeley's Neighborhoods, a nonprofit organization, filed a lawsuit in July. They allege that UC Berkeley violated the California Environmental Quality Act with increased enrollment well beyond the growth projected in the 2005 EIR without conducting further environmental review. The school will now also have to stop its development and housing projects. In an emailed statement to NTD, a spokesperson said they are optimistic to file documents that will satisfy the judgment and confident the court will allow them to proceed with one of the projects. In a recently approved development plan, the school also does not expect student growth to exceed 1% annually. In Southern California, UC San Diego is seeing a similar problem with more students. One of the impacts of too many students is a lack of housing. One parent took it to Facebook to ask about an RV park near UCSD because their friend's son can't find housing.
We're finding it extremely difficult to find anything, let alone something affordable. My son isn't planning to have a vehicle, so it really needs to be someplace where he can access the bus line. So really anything within 15 minutes of campus.
According to a spokesperson for UCSD, about 1,670 undergraduates are on the housing waitlist. Due to the pandemic situation, they have removed triple housing options, eliminating about 2,000 beds. With less students on campus, they would need to find more housing off campus.
We're hearing reports of students renting living room space. So they're just kind of putting up a little curtain or partition in the living room, and they're renting living room space for $1,000 a month. And there's, these apartments that are really meant for maybe 2 people. They're cramming 4 or 5 people in there. And so for me, that presents more of a COVID risk than had they just been able to be on campus with regulations in place.
Breton said students are looking into places an hour away for a place to live. She finds the resources the school provides unhelpful because they're too basic and they are already doing what's suggested. Eileen Ang, NTD News, California.
Self-driving startups like Cruise and Pony AI have started testing their driverless cars in some parts of California this year with an additional feature: humans. Rosanna Philpott reports.
When you think of driverless cars, you probably don't envisage a human sat in the front. In this case, though, there's no driver behind the wheel, but a safety operator in the passenger seat. It's a feature being used by self-driving startups like Cruise and Pony.ai, which started testing their cars in some parts of California this year. For Pony.ai, which has backing from Toyota Motor Corp, it's only a temporary measure, according to CEO James Peng.
So the safety driver has a red button that can stop the vehicle just in case there's anything happens. Although rarely we see the safety driver actually use that. So that will be only for a transition period. Next year, our plan is we'll have fully driverless. Means we'll have no safety drivers in the vehicle. It will be completely fully driverless.
Even then, though, a remote operator will monitor vehicles and provide guidance when the vehicles run into trouble. Cruise, majority owned by General Motors Co., started operating 5 driverless vehicles in San Francisco at night in October, with a human in the front passenger seat. According to a spokesperson, the Minder has the ability to stop the vehicle at any point during the ride. Cruise says it sees the development of self-driving vehicles as not only a tech race, but also a trust race. Alphabet Inc.'s Waymo has been developing self-driving tech for more than a decade and launched the world's first commercial robotaxis in Phoenix in 2018. But it still keeps humans in the loop, monitoring and assisting the fleet, from responding to riders' questions to remotely giving a second pair of eyes in tricky situations. The continued human presence in what are supposed to be software-driven automated vehicles underscores the challenges facing the industry. With no end in sight to the technical and regulatory obstacles to free-range driverless robotaxis, some self-driving companies are accepting the need for human minders and scaling down their ambitions. So, according to interviews with investors and startup executives, they can start generating revenue in the near future.
Coming up, Beijing eyeing online fans and celebrities as targets for its next crackdown. Insiders say the move could be politically motivated. And protests continue in the UK as the British government plans to make full vaccination a requirement to enter nightclubs and other venues with large crowds. That and more here on NTD News. Chinese celebrities and online fans are finding themselves facing the wrath of Beijing, with social media accounts being shut down and celebrities disappearing from the internet. Insiders say the move could be politically driven. Here are the details.
Beijing has declared war on idol worship, part of a broader crackdown on Chinese celebrities. On Friday, Chinese regulators issued a list of notices. One of the new rules bans online lists ranking celebrities by popularity. The list goes on to outline 9 other steps to control celebrity fan culture, which it describes as having become chaotic. The following day, another government body under the Chinese regime said it would crack down on what it calls the shocking behavior of Chinese celebrities. Last week, one of China's most prominent stars, Vicky Zhao Wei, was scrubbed from the internet, while another celebrity actor, Zheng Shuang, was fined $46 million for a tax scandal. Insiders say the clampdown on celebrities appears to carry a political purpose for Beijing.
To clean up public opinion, a strictly controlled speech before the CCP's 20th Party Congress.
The next Chinese Communist Party leadership succession is scheduled for 2022. It marks a critical time for party leader Xi Jinping, as it will determine whether he'll remain in power for a 3rd term. And Gao says the first step to ensure that happens is by shaping public opinion, and that's done through regulating pop culture.
The entertainment industry is like a wind indicator, which will have a great impact on the society.
The incidents follow previous clampdowns on China's big tech and private sectors. In a recent speech, leader Xi Jinping called for what he called common prosperity. The rhetoric appears to be a new attack on China's wealthy, and this time it's taking aim at China's celebrities. A Communist Party insider says the effort was spurred on by Beijing's inner financial crisis. To protect his identity, we changed his voice and referred to him by his surname.
The celebrities have so many fans. They have huge advertising revenue, etc. From them, that's where Beijing can get a large sum of money to solve the central financial crisis.
Chinese celebrities have increasingly been targeted in recent weeks. Among them, superstar singer-actor Chris Wu was arrested and detained following rape allegations. Since then, his internet presence has been largely removed, while a Chinese TV anchor, Chen Feng, was also accused of rape in one of the country's latest sexual assault scandals. Another star, Zheng Jihan, he's being blamed for insulting the Chinese people after posing for photos at a war-linked memorial site in Japan. His films and TV series have likewise been taken down online.
The Chinese Communist Party's current action gives the signal that authorities are ripping off wealth from the celebrities, first done by creating public opinions through this kind of national hatred towards them. Then the central government will issue them a huge fine.
But Mr. Chen says Beijing's strategy comes with an exception. For members of the regime's leadership, the problem isn't that the celebrities are billionaires. It's about the fact that there are billionaires other than them.
The CCP dares to touch them? It's just a case of hurting a group without power or influence.
The action against celebrities comes on the heels of regulators targeting other groups, like education, tech, and business.
A commentary on the issue appeared in multiple Chinese state-run media sources Sunday. It describes Beijing's recent clampdown on various industry sectors as a profound revolution, adding that those who stand in the way will be left behind. According to the commentary, it's the sign that China's returning to the essence of socialism. But on Chinese social media platforms, some comments compare the crackdown to the Cultural Revolution in the 1960s, a decade of social turmoil where arts and culture were restricted to only promoting party propaganda. And protests continue as the British government plans to make full vaccination a requirement to enter nightclubs and other venues with large crowds. Some are worried vaccine passes are a step too far. NTD's Jane Werrell has this report.
So we're here in central London covering the Freedom Rally, which has been happening every month for the last few months. And there's a wide range of people here. I've been speaking to some of them, and here's what they've got to say.
We should be looking at different things. You know, the vaccine is part of the solution, so is vitamin C, D, zinc, ivermectin, you name it. Living a healthy life, exercising, diet, sleep, all these things are what we should be looking for instead of lockdowns and vaccine passports.
Many here are parents who want their children to enjoy the same freedoms they did as they grew up. There are concerns around parental consent and COVID vaccines for school children, particularly when data shows children are at very low risk from COVID-19.
We do not want children being vaccinated against their parents' wishes. Children and parents need to be informed.
If we don't stand today, who will stand tomorrow? Who is going to stand up for our children? Who are going to stand up for the 3-4 generations in the future to come? Because today it's vaccines. What will it be tomorrow?
A way mostly for the children and for our freedoms.
The government has faced criticism for their plans on vaccine passes, not just at protests. More than 200 organisations and individuals, including business leaders, journalists, campaigners and church leaders, have signed a declaration against any form of vaccine pass in the UK. MPs are set to vote on vaccine passes after Parliament reopens next month. The details of the vote are yet to be announced. Jane Werrell, NTD News, London.
French authorities are warning that their COVID vaccination pass will likely be extended, and thousands of Parisians took to the streets on Saturday to protest. NTD's David Vives has the story.
Thousands of people took to the streets of Paris on Saturday to protest against France's COVID-19 health pass. It's now required for daily activities such as entering restaurants, commercial centers or cinemas. Some protesters also demonstrated against the mandatory vaccination. Others spoke out against the vaccination for children. The COVID vaccine will soon be pushed inside schools.
I came to demonstrate for my children. I am a mother. I am still very young. I need freedom. So does my child. The children's future is the most important thing to me.
There were 160,000 protesters across the nation, according to the Interior Minister, 490,000 according to a police union. Protesters are also calling out the mainstream media, accusing them of bias.
We will not give up. We will demonstrate, always peacefully. You know the saying, when the lie takes the elevator, the truth takes the stairs. It will take longer to arrive, but it will arrive.
Starting Monday, the health pass is now extended to all employees in restaurants and cultural venues, and the measures will become more strict this month with the forced vaccination of healthcare workers. Some protesters believe the grassroots protests will continue to grow, though the government says turnout has decreased by 55,000 people over the past 2 weeks. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
Firefighters on Monday tackled a large blaze at a 20-story apartment building in Milan, Italy. The fire started on Sunday, and so far there are no indications that anyone is missing inside. Cases of smoke inhalation were reported, but no serious injuries or deaths. The building's cladding melted during the fire, and it's now under scrutiny.
Firefighters said everyone managed to escape the 18-story building in the south of Milan, which was gutted by the blaze. Witnesses have said the fire, which started on the 15th floor, quickly surged through the outside cladding of the building. Video of the blaze showed panels melting off the building in liquefied clumps. Residents included Italian rapper Mahmood, the 2019 winner of the San Remo Music Festival. The mayor of Milan demanded answers on Monday over why the fire was able to rip through the apartment block and melt its cladding, comparing it to the Grenfell Tower fire in London that killed 71 people 4 years ago. Mayor Beppe Sala wrote on Facebook, "The tower was built just over 10 years ago, and it is unacceptable that such a modern building should have proved totally vulnerable." The deaths in Britain's Grenfell Tower fire were blamed on exterior cladding panels made of flammable material. Owners of apartments in similar buildings across Britain have since been forced to remove such panels at a cost estimated to run into billions of dollars, forcing many residents into economic hardship.
The European Union recommended Monday to take the U.S. off its safe travel list, banning Americans from non-essential travel to its member states because of rising CCP virus infections. But the guidance is non-binding, meaning each individual EU country still has the final say over whether to allow fully vaccinated U.S. travelers in. American tourists should expect a mishmash of travel rules across the continent, since the EU has no unified COVID-19 tourism policy. Back in June, the EU had recommended lifting restrictions on all U.S. travelers, but the spread of the Delta variant is prompting a reversal of that decision. More than 15 million Americans a year visited Europe before the pandemic, and new travel restrictions could cost European businesses billions in lost revenues. The EU recommendation doesn't apply to Britain, which formally left the EU at the beginning of the year and opened its borders to fully vaccinated U.S. travelers earlier this month. Meanwhile, the United States has yet to reopen its own borders to EU tourists. And coming up, under the baking sun of southern France, dozens of workers collect a precious white flower that is a key ingredient to the famed fragrance Chanel No. 5. Stay tuned to find out more.
You worked hard for your money. You invest in stability for your retirement and your family's future, to build and leave them with something greater. The next unprecedented financial crisis, political misstep, or unstable government can depreciate it all away. It was called the gold standard for a reason, the financial preservation of tomorrow. Diversify your assets against inflation, market volatility, and the unknown with real money. Hedge your wealth with the purest form of money, physical gold and silver. Because any currency printed on paper can be manipulated. What's backing up your IRA? Do what you need to do right now to be prepared with the Reagan Gold Group. Visit now, rggusakit.com, or call us at 866-912-1384. Receive up to $2,500 in free silver coins and a free safe with your new precious metals IRA. Call now.
Here's something you don't see every day. Hundreds of Redheads. They gathered together from around the world at a festival in the southern Dutch town of Tilburg on Sunday.
The annual Redhead Days event returned after being cancelled in 2020 due to the pandemic. It brought visitors from countries including Britain, Germany, Hungary, and the United States to a series of meet and greet events and activities, including a live drawing class.
It's very rare to have red hair, and we see that people that have something very special, they love it to be once in a while to be in the majority. So at the Redhead Days we have hundreds and hundreds of redheads together, and that's some special feeling for people. They say, well, in my home country, for example, we have an Egyptian redhead who said, well, in my home country I'm the only redhead in the city. But here I see my family, my worldwide family.
Organizers say attendance at the three-day festival was sharply down compared to previous years. Activities like lectures and bar crawl were scrapped due to the COVID-19 restrictions. But some participants say they still felt a connection to others.
We have this funny connection with others. You meet a lot of people, you can come alone, and it's just special.
I personally feel something when I see redheads or redhead people. I feel like effectively we belong to a certain community. There's something that brings us together closely.
The festival has been held in the Netherlands since 2005.
Thousands of cows made the hours-long exodus from high in the Swiss Alps down to the lower pastures on Saturday. It's a traditional journey for the cows that marks the end of the herd's summer near the top of the mountains. NTD's Jason Perry has the story.
About 50 farmers rang bells early in the morning to guide 1,200 cattle down the Alpine Mountain Pass, which is over 6,000 feet above sea level.
I have 16 cows. We brought one down with the cattle truck, an older one which is 10 years old. The others walked down.
The cows spent 7 weeks high up in the Alps before the trip, which lasts about 5 hours.
For me, the descent was something special. It was their first summer up in the Alps, so yes, it is special.
Injured cows that couldn't take part in the procession were airlifted by helicopter to lower pastures on Friday.
The cows will surely stay here for 2 weeks, and maybe 3 if everything goes well, depending on the weather.
Dairy farmer Kobe Arnold has been participating in the bovine parade for 3 years. He joined the trip with his herd of 15 cows, which will now graze in pastures in the lower area of the mountains. Jason Perry, NTD News.
In southern France, dozens of pickers are working to harvest a key ingredient in the famous Chanel No. 5 perfume, which is celebrating its 100th anniversary. Here's more.
Can you guess the name of this white 5-petaled flower? It sometimes goes with green tea, and it's also the key ingredient in one of the most famous fragrances, the Chanel No. 5, jasmine. These fragrant flowers are collected in the southern French city of Grasse, wearing white-brown hats to shield them from the Mediterranean sun. Dozens of pickers collect handfuls of them. Chanel struck a deal with the local Mole family, who owns the fields, to be provided with our jasmine flowers.
The jasmine of Grasse is probably the most important ingredient of Chanel's No. 5 perfume. It is an ingredient that we've had to work hard for.
This year marks the perfume's 100th anniversary, though the pandemic has marred the celebration. But according to the Mole family, production has not been overly affected by COVID-19. The virus can cause some people to lose their sense of taste and smell, a particular problem for perfumers known as noses in the business.
For sure. It was a pretty peculiar year, but in many ways, it was the same for me as everyone. Even though I'm a nose, we all tried not to get COVID-19.
Though the first modern perfumes were created in the late 19th century, the tradition of fragrance making has existed here in Grasse since the Middle Ages, a craft that has been passed down and perfected since then. In 1921, fashion designer Coco Chanel created her brand's signature fragrance, composed of over a dozen scents. It was favored by Hollywood stars such as Marilyn Monroe and Audrey Hepburn, which propelled the jasmine-based perfume into the spotlight.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox.